Okay. So since we got to the metaverse concept, what do you think about it? Good or bad? Will Meta or Facebook be a monopolist in the future? Are we all going to have an avatar in metaverse in the next 5 years? What do you think?
Well, I have an avatar in the metaverse already. I think in the next
Yeah.
5-10 years is way too long. This is happening right now. But yeah, go ahead. I let Ross to talk a bit his opinions.
Yeah, it's interesting. I tend to agree in some respects. I think that the adoption of VR social platforms has been somewhat of a catalyst for some users to start to understand how we can engage and collaborate within virtual environments outside of the traditional gaming industry. So forget the multiplayer sort of stuff where we can, Meta Workplace, or we use Spatial quite a lot, or Glue. There's quite a few of them. They've come on board the last 12 to 18 months, right? The impact of the pandemic allowed some of us to explore other ways to collaborate outside of Zoom and Teams. And I think that the openness, the ability to see what was possible to the broader market has accelerated that drive for these larger companies to say, right, okay, we can now move and create this metaverse concept and build upon something that will effectively change how a lot of people can engage and collaborate both in work and in personal life. For me, it's interesting that the dynamic between that enterprise professional use and the personal use, and where does that cross over, if at all? And if it does cross over, how do we manage it? How do we make sure it's safe and we can segregate the two when needed? That's a big question mark for me, because I like to use XR for different things at different times, not just one platform for everything.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's right. I think everyone describes the metaverse at the moment as almost a different thing. Everyone has a different description about it because it hasn't properly developed yet. But the metaverse, in a way, is there already. The metaverse is the internet. It's just the embodiment, or it's being able to be inside the internet, if you like. But still be able to interact with the real world. But what it needs, which it doesn't have, which is what Ross was touching on, is it doesn't have the interoperability between the different worlds that are out there. There's platforms like VR Chat. There's AltSpace VR, which they're virtual worlds, but you can't jump from one to the other. And we need global open standards based on open source code, just like they did for the internet. We got something called HTML, and that HTML language will allow you to view any web page wherever you are, whether it's an enterprise web page or whether it's a personal web page. We have a common language that the whole world conforms to, so we can all view a web page. And then we have standard browsers too, which is a browser has to conform to a number of standards in order to interpret those HTML pages. What the metaverse needs is a similar sort of thing, so that you can just have the equivalent of a browser, but it's not a browser. It'll be the part of the platform that you're running in your headset. But you should be able to run any operating system, just like with computers where we have a Mac. It uses a completely different operating system to Windows, but we all can browse the same web pages and do the same thing. We need that for VR and AR devices for this to work. And you need to be able to take your avatar and be able to take it into the different worlds. And We can't do that yet, and that needs to be developed. And I know that they're all working on it. The open standards, the ISO standards are being worked on at the moment to allow this thing to happen, but it's going to take some time before we get there. And in the meantime, all these companies are building up their own worlds, and that's fine. That will happen, but they'll need to have some gateway for it to be able to go from one to the other and to interoperate. Whether you're in the corporate world or whether you're in the private world, you should be able to do whatever you like. You can have your avatar for corporate, just like we have our profile pictures in the various platforms. We all have our LinkedIn profile, which is all our nice professional profile, and then we have our Facebook profile that we put anything on or whatever. And that's what it'll be. And we need to interact to that. And then the other thing is called, which is one of the terms is called metanomics, which is the e-commerce that goes with the metaverse as well. And that needs to be linked, and it works ideally to link the blockchain with items, digital items that are in the metaverse, so that you can use cryptocurrency and blockchain to purchase or do commerce within that environment. And that's where it's going to really explode. And that's where they say, but this will take 5 to 10 years before we get there. But the predictions are that this will be a 5 to 8 trillion pound industry once that really gets going, because it'll be just like purchasing stuff that you do on Amazon or on a web page at the moment. It's just the next version of how we use the internet. But all the metaverse is the internet. Never let anyone say there's lots of metaverses. There isn't, because there's only one internet. There's not lots of internet. It's just one, and that's all it is.
Yeah, I remember on the latest panel, actually, I have been in the AIXR. We were discussing this idea of the metaverse and a metaverse. And right now it's like several metaverses. Sometime maybe there will be this idea of the metaverse, which is not there yet. But back to the interoperability is something that is really interesting to us, and we work quite close to that. Because as I was explaining, we stream the 3D polygonal data from the cloud, which means we actually can do that. So there is a platform that has our SDK and another platform that has our SDK. They can actually stream the exact same object to different worlds at the same time. And that's something we work quite nicely with and hoping to make that happen. Sorry?
Is that an open source SDK? If you got that on GitHub, or is it open source?
No, not yet. No. It is still like we are building up, but already working and accessible. But I think it's like something extremely needed for the metaverse, which means that I don't believe Facebook or any metaverse will be like a monopoly, because it just cannot happen. If that happens, there's no metaverse, because the whole idea is to be decentralized, and and then when it connects to crypto, then it's even more decentralized. And if it starts to be centralized, it's just not going to be possible to happen. Or I don't want that happens that way again.
No, we can't. I don't think the industry will let that happen. It just won't, because we don't want someone like Meta to take over. I don't know whether anyone's seen the film Ready Player One. That all works seamlessly, which is where this guy's in a metaverse. But that film, and it's interesting, that film is about one company that runs the whole metaverse. And that's why he's so easily going into one world and the other, blah, 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 because it's all run by one company. Yeah. So that's not how we want it to be in that film. That's, we must have open standards. And I'm sure that the world will do that, because, you can't have one company monopolizing everything. Yeah. And it's just unfortunate that Facebook have changed their name to calling themselves the internet, basically. Hi, we call internet. What?
Yeah, so we all agree. Ross, would you like to add something?
No, no, good.
Okay, perfect. So now I think we will switch to a question of about a mix of technologies. So, what do you think XR will have in common with the NFT, IoT, Web 3.0, 5G, stuff like that? Could you could you say something more?
I think it's an interesting question, and I don't have the answer, but I would love to see how that will develop, like in the coming years. Because as I said, like in the Web3 NFT world, especially, I follow quite heavily the realm, and it's crazy and it's really fast, and it's developing an insane speed, and XR is not catching up, at least at the moment. And I do see a lot of NFT collections or people, that are not at all, they don't even have a VR headset, thinking like it will be cool, it will be so nice, and
Mm.
like this thinking of like it will be nice, but it could be already happening. Like, why not? We all do like 3D worlds already in VR. To connect to an NFT is not that difficult. I think only Sony Space maybe is the most prominent one that are really blending together these things. But in my personal opinion, it needs to be more active somehow. Like we could be working like closer to these technologies. And yeah, in the case of 5G, let's see when it really happens. We do work with a lot of 5G companies. For us, it's extremely important because the more connection you have, the better our system will run. But yeah, I think on the NFT Web3 part, XR will play there, but I wonder how, and I would love to see that happening already and not just waiting for something.